Okay, hey y'all. This is going to be a new, hopefully, video series called Savvy Friends, where I invite my friends that I found on Instagram to talk about all the things that they love, hopefully, some of the things that we have in common. And so I have Jordan here from A Blue Nest, and I'm just so excited to chat with you tonight. We were talking before we started recording about, getting married and moving and all the things. And I had to stop Jordan and say, let's start recording because she mentioned that she lived in Virginia for a little while. And this is kind of silly, but my friend Libby and I have a joke that there is like Virginia style. Like there is this certain type of like home style that you see often like in Virginia, which
Colonial, more
what is colonial?
colonial.
Yeah, but also just like warm tones with the traditional, traditional furniture, but like grand millennial mixed in. And I think that your
Yes.
home reminds me of that. And so
Really?
I was like, I just have to,
So
yes,
funny.
I love, I was looking back through your feed and I was like, I noticed, I don't know if this was just like a very natural thing for you or if it was planned, but you used to have a little bit more of like light and bright in your home.
So I feel like aesthetically wise, like it's always kind of been there for me.
Mhm.
I was the kid that begged my mom for these Martha Stewart sheets at Kmart.
I know Kmart, the fact that
Little,
she had her line at Kmart is still kind of like cracking,
yes, it
but
does.
it's
It's
so
like if
good.
you think about it now, like it's just
Kmart
so
was the target of the day, I guess. That was
kind of it kind of was. So in my hometown that I grew up in, like we live in East Tennessee now, but we're from Middle Tennessee.
Gotcha.
And my hometown was really small. I mean, it's grown now, but there was like I remember when the Walmart was built. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
there was
Oh yeah.
Food
Same.
Lion, um, the local like CB, which is and then like Kmart. Um, and so I begged her for these sheets. I had several sets. Um, and they were very like shabby chic. You know what I mean? And
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking
it
about.
was, yeah. So I had this vision. I wanted all white bedding. I talked to my parents into getting me a bed with a canopy, like a white canopy.
Oh
Imagine
yes.
like a twin canopy
Yeah, that
bed.
was fancy. Like
So fancy. And my bedroom was tiny, so it looked like it took up the whole space. Like the bedroom was not big enough for that. And then these like floral chintz sheets, like I could see it all in my head, and
yes.
I had like Barbie sheets or
Hmm.
101 Dalmatians. Like I
I
had
like
sets of
I
that.
I'm tracking with you exactly there. I had like
But
the same
I
trajectory.
don't know what it was. Like I saw these and I was like, yes, like that's me. And I used to watch like Trading Spaces, and Christopher Lloyd. No, not Christopher Lloyd. It was Christopher something
I know
on
who you're talking about.
HGTV. You know
Yes.
what I'm talking about? I can't
Yes.
think of what his last name was, but that was his show. I watched those. It's like if I was homesick from school, like that's what I was watching. Um, and then, but my mom didn't really have, a design aesthetic like that. Like
Mhm.
our house was nothing like that. And not really any of my family's house was like that.
Do you think, I
And
know
so
you're a big reader. Do you feel like some of the stories that you read, like somehow like you were trying to recreate like
bit, and
aspects
it's
of that?
funny to think now, I actually had kind of an epiphany, um, not too long ago about just this, like the movie sets, because not
Mm-hmm.
only am I a big reader, I love stories. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like in
Yes.
all shapes and forms. So I love getting lost in a TV show, like Outlander or whatever, like
Hmm.
that draws you in. I love getting lost
Yes.
in movies and I love getting lost in books. And so as a child watching the Anne of Green Gables
Oh my gosh. Yes,
miniseries
I can
with
totally see
Megan
that. Yeah.
Fellows,
Hmm.
that was a big one. The Secret Garden, another huge one. Um, like A Little Princess. You know what I
I
mean?
can remember so many scenes from that so distinctly. Like there's still
Yes,
like I haven't seen that movie probably
yes,
in
yes.
15 plus years, but like those scenes,
Um,
the sets and,
in their
and everything.
dresses with those big
Mhm.
bows, like
Yes.
I wanted it all. And then like American Girl dolls, so
Yes.
Felicity Merriman, like colonial, like all of her stuff. I loved that. And um, Father of the Bride was another huge one for me,
Oh my
which I
gosh.
know now, like Nancy Myers is so iconic for
Yeah.
her sets, but as a child, like I didn't.
you're not consciously
that.
necessarily being like, I
I
want
never
Chinese
saw
food.
any other one, but it at home for me was just like goals, from the white exterior with the ivy
Right.
to all the molding in the house. And I don't know, the kitchen especially was so influential, I feel like, to my taste. And so it's so funny looking back, and it's just these little like snippets and like little tidbits
Yes.
that have just
Well, I
kind of
think all of those things that you
like
mentioned, to me,
picked up
that
along the
all
way.
comes together as like kind of the pictures that I've seen from your home in the video. It's like that is very clear that, you know, that those are
Yeah,
that's your taste. And I think it's also so interesting that I wonder if it's too that it's the feel from those two. It's not just like the
I think
aesthetic, but like
so.
you
Yes,
get that feel. It's like a warmth and a coziness
it
without
is.
feeling dark,
No, and it's
welcoming,
not,
you know?
it's also not like pretentious, because it could
Right.
be, you know what I mean? It
Yes.
could be very stiff. And
Right. It looks
but
like you
I
can sit down and
always,
not worry about if you have your shoes on or, you
yes, I
know.
always wanted that, just kind of, and that's, I think, why as I've gotten older and I've been more aware of styles and other things out there, I've
Mhm.
gravitated towards like the English country style, because
Right.
it's not working. Um, because it does have all of those elements of some of the formality, lots of molding, lots of
Well, it's like
accessories,
the
but
tradition of it, but the
yes,
comfort of,
and
you know,
it's
welcome.
still it's very relaxed, and it feels like you can come in and put your feet on something and like have dogs in the house, and
Right.
it feels lived
Lived
in.
in a good way.
Yes. And so that's what I strive for. And I feel like it took a lot of honing. Like I've always kind of had this vision in my head of what I've liked, but
Right.
actually being able to translate that took
Yes.
so much
I
trial
can
and
identify
error.
with that. I'm still not there. I feel like
Oh
that,
my gosh.
you know, when it comes to home decorating, like that is not my like number one forte, but that's why I appreciate your like people like you so much, because I see that and I'm like, I'm in this journey and I'm
Yes, it is a journey.
close-ish,
It is
but
a
I'm not, I
journey.
don't feel like I walk in most rooms in my house and automatically feel like it feels like me. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the goal. And not just me, but like our
I
family,
get what you're saying.
you
Yeah.
know.
It's a journey, and it's taken a lot of trial and error. And a lot of having to just block out trends,
Hmm.
especially having like a home decor focused Instagram. You
Right.
see what other people are doing, and you see them having a lot of success and
Right.
like gaining followers by the dozens, like
Oh yeah.
just oodles of followers constantly. And then you're like, oh, well, maybe I should do that too. And so I definitely got sucked into the like modern farmhouse
Hmm.
craze, because we were just like, we had just bought our first house. It was a fixer upper. um
Literally, you guys were like,
yes,
fix her upper. Here we go.
yes,
Let's do
it
this.
was built in 1983, so it was just
Gotcha.
outdated.
Right.
But the outside was like, the exterior was it was a salt box house, so it, even though it was built in the 80s and we were in Middle Tennessee, like it had the colonial exterior anyway,
Mhm.
but the inside was like very much 80s.
Oh, ours is 83 as well. So I know. I'm
Yes.
very familiar.
Yes. And I got sucked into the like light and bright, and it was hard for me to balance like what I loved, like the blue and white and the
Mhm.
floral and um things like that. And Micah really like he goes more towards like rustic style.
Mhm.
He grew up in a log cabin.
Wow. Yeah.
His
It
dad
is
used to
crazy.
build.
My husband did too. So it's like really crazy
Yes.
how many things in common.
I mean, he said like, so his tub at the big log cabin that he like equates with kind of his childhood home, because his dad was a contractor, so they moved around a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
But they were in this one for kind of some of his formative years. It was a huge horse trough, like the bathtub in his room was, with
That's
stones around
incredible.
it
Oh my
and,
gosh.
stuff like that. And so he goes more towards the rustic.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was hard for me to put the light and bright and like modern farmhouse,
Right.
what I loved, which I was like, I knew I loved like English country, but I just didn't know how to
Well, it's hard too
make
when
it translate.
the stores are
Yes.
having most of that look, you're kind of getting that and you're like, well, how do I, we're kind of,
Where do I go from here?
we feel like we have to lean into these things
Yes.
when we walk into
Do.
regular like retail stores. And so that's where I wonder when you started shopping secondhand, if you've always shopped secondhand, if you leaned in more to the secondhand as you're trying to curate your home to feel more like you.
I feel like I've not always shopped secondhand. My parents did some. I definitely got into secondhand shopping with home stuff first.
Mhm.
Like I started collecting china, and like mason jars, like
Oh,
everybody
yes.
else. But you know what I mean? Like my blue and white china collection, that kind
Mhm.
of started some of it for me. And like bits of copper, things like that.
Mhm.
Uh, and then it really just kind of took off from there. And I've always loved antiques. And Micah and I actually started our own little center earring.
Earring just popped
So Micah and I started our own little antique side business when we were living in Florida when we first got married. He was stationed at Eglin Air Force Base,
Okay.
and we rented a space at DeFrance Antiques in Fort Walton Beach. And we just started going because we didn't have kids, and it was
Okay.
just the two of
Yeah.
us, 8 hours, 9 hours away from family. And
Yeah.
so we started just going on the weekends, going to auctions, finding estate sales, yard sales, like anything that we could find. And he already had a pretty good eye for antiques too, because his dad, in addition to being a contractor, also owned an antique business for a while. And so he and his partner
Amazing.
kind of did the American Pickers type thing. They would
Oh,
travel around and then bring stuff back to their antique
wow.
um, mall in Micah's hometown. Um, and so he kind of already knew some stuff about it. And then I learned some stuff along the way. And having a background in art history, I felt helped a little bit because we also did cover random like furnishings and things in certain periods of
Right. You
study.
can appreciate different types of styles.
Yeah, and we studied about like Queen Anne style furniture, or the hallmarks of random things.
Right.
Um,
Over time.
so we started doing that, and then it just kind of, I mean, my love for secondhand shopping and antiques, especially like antique dressers,
Mhm.
that is kind of where it started, and then it's taken off from there. But I feel like really, I've shopped consignment sales before, like
Mhm.
when Ava was little, but I could never shop clothing like at a thrift store. I used to not even like doing clothing at like Marshall's because it just overwhelmed me.
Overwhelming.
You know
So
what I mean?
when did you start dipping your toe into clothes? Because I know you've shared some like thrift hauls with clothing lately, and I
I feel like that's all I've
for
been thrifting lately.
it.
It's just a lot of clothes. So I feel like that really started, gosh, I don't know, within the past 3 years, I would
Okay,
say.
that's super interesting
Um,
because
and
I love, I feel like in a weird way that some people's home aesthetic and like style aesthetic for their wardrobe are like night and day. But
mhm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like an English countryside vibe somehow to like your
Yeah.
outfits in the best possible way. I don't know.
Thank
Do you
you.
follow Hill House Vintage?
Oh, yes.
Is she not her home?
Yes,
It's just
I'm so
creamy. And I'm like,
obsessed with everything
oh,
that she
Jordan could
does.
just go visit over there and fit right in.
Everything that she does. She's like goals. And also I love Leah from My Mulberry House. I don't know if you follow
Oh,
her. Obsessed with like everything that she does. Um, their homes both are so inspirational for me,
mhm.
and seeing like what true English country homes
Right.
look like, that are lived in, and like Leah has young kids, and so see, just the nothing is too precious in
Right.
there. And we kind of treat our home the same way. Like we have like inside animals,
Yes.
and
Like we have kids, we have animals. We
yes.
love our home, but it needs to be functional for us.
Yes, I mean, people are always like, "Oh, your house is so, pretty. Like, I could never have those things in my house. My kids would destroy XYZ or
Mhm.
whatever." And I'm like, "But kids, man." can still hear her screaming. Um, if they're around it all the time, then it'll just kind of be the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's another reason why I love to thrift stuff. Like if something gets broken, like
It's not that you're not sad, but you're like,
yeah,
oh, I
it
get,
doesn't hurt as much.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yes.
Clara, our youngest, she broke, it does still hurt. um, she broke one of my Staffordshire dog
Oh,
statues.
yes, yes.
Um, and that was actually my thing, like on one of my best finds. It was listed on Facebook Marketplace for $10, and the caption, like the title was like weird cat.
I love that so much. That's one of my favorite things is when
And I
people name
saw it
things
and I was
so
like,
weird.
oh my gosh. And it was
I
so
want
close
this
to
weird
me.
cat.
And the guy was like, do you know anything about this? Like, I've been getting a ton of messages, but yours was the first. So I figured I would like, can you tell me about it? And I was like, how much do I tell him? Like, is he gonna up the price
That's
on me?
so tricky.
And it wasn't a pair, it was just one. But I still took it anyway. Um, and she was putting it in her baby doll stroller, like to push it
Oh,
around,
sweet girl.
and it fell out and its head was shattered into like a million pieces. Like there was no hope of gluing it back together. And I was so sad because I was looking for a pair, like another one to match it.
Right.
And they're, infamously expensive and
Oh
hard to
gosh.
find.
Yes.
And
Well,
it
I
still
believe you'll
hurt.
find another
But I
one.
was
I
like, at
believe that
least,
you'll find two
yeah.
somewhere at some
It,
point.
Micah thought it was the weirdest thing. He was like, why is this in our house? Like, it's so weird. Why are you so in love with, like, I was like, but I love it. Like I named it,
Oh my
and he
gosh.
was
Well,
like,
it's just those pieces that you're like, this is something special and
yes.
has a history.
He
So
just
someone being in
couldn't,
art history and all that,
yeah,
you're like, this
he
is
just couldn't.
more than just
I
a
was
weird
like,
cat.
and I was like, I'm gonna put it by your bedside table, like by the bed, and like face it towards you and have it like staring at you. Um, but yeah, so that one hurt. But then I was like, well, it was only $10. At least it wasn't 150. You
Right.
know?
And Facebook Marketplace, do you still use that? I mean, do you still use Facebook? Like, what would you say secondhand shopping wise you use most frequently for your finds?
So I feel like it comes in waves. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like right now, I'm definitely on a thrift store kick. Um, because personally, I have been trying to. Do
It
you see
popped up
that?
and told us, yeah, it says we only have a little bit of time.
That's
I'm
fine.
hoping it
Actually, that would be fine
connects.
because then I could go try to calm down the crazy up there. It said that, or I'm trying to update my wardrobe with quality pieces. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
Yes.
so I've been hunting thrift store things because you can find, a cashmere sweater for $8 or, designer jeans for $5.
Yes.
Or, it might be a little more expensive than that, but that's, the gist of it. And
Oh yeah.
so I've been hunting for that a lot. And then I look for things for my girls as they've grown, and like for
Hmm.
like when the change of the season starts. Um, so right now thrift stores a lot. I feel like the ones near me don't have a good selection of like home goods though, or if they do, they're going to be priced kind of expensively.
That's what I
Um,
feel like mine is in waves too. Because right now, I don't know if people have noticed in my spotted not thrifted, there hasn't been a ton of home items, but it's not because I'm
yes,
looking. It's just nothing's really like
yes.
jumping out at me. But like the clothes
It's
are really
just
great
kind
right
of like
now.
meh, and then it'll be this really nice, maybe like Italian bowl, but it's $30. I'm like, are you insane? Like,
Right. It's like it just has
no.
to line up. And if you enjoy thrifting,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. You're not making a
Yeah.
special trip just because, but
And so that consignment sales is another big one, but that's very cyclical too. They happen,
right.
at least near us, they
Big
happen in
ones.
spring and then they happen in the fall.
Yeah.
So I'm about to go to a couple of those. Um, Estate sales are another one that I feel like come in waves for me. I use the estate sale
Hmm.
app so I can kind of look and see like what is going on. And I feel like there hasn't been anything, at least that they've shown
Hmm.
on any of them recently, that has like caught my eye. And it's another area where I feel like there's been a lot of price gouging. Like
Well, it's
suddenly
like that's why the
at
like,
estate
the internet is
sales,
so
things
great, but it's
are
like people are more aware of it, which is wonderful. I'm all about like
yeah.
everybody know about all the things, but estate sales is the one thing I've actually never like ventured into because it is the
Ah,
type of
no.
secondhand shopping that intimidates me.
Oh my gosh. Estate sales are kind of one of the first things that I started going to. Like I never really went to thrift stores
I
still,
love
but
the
like,
idea of seeing people's homes, but also like there's a part of me that's like nervous about it. I think because there's like definitely people who know what they're doing, and I feel like a novice in this sense. So I
yeah.
guess it's just like I need to just
No, you
do
just got
it.
to do it. You need to get the estate sale app. I mean, you can look online. And so I'm actually going to do it's estatesales.net. They have
Okay.
an app and I just had to double check it. And you can put in your exact location and you can make like a perimeter, like where they, a
Yes, like
little
a
bubble
bubble.
around, like
Mhm.
how far you want to search. And you can, and it also pulls up auctions where you could like, you can filter those out. You can filter it by how you want. And so it'll pull up
I
things by
think the
date.
thing is for estate sales and yard sales, I feel like they're usually early morning, and I'm
Mhm.
like I'd rather thrift in the evening, like
Well,
versus
estate sales, a lot of times they'll start kind of early, but then they'll go to like 3 or 4.
that's true.
So it just depends.
Just need to bite the bullet and go.
And the thing with me, like with estate sales versus yard sales, I never have cash on me, really,
Oh, yeah.
ever. But a
Mhm.
lot of estate sales will accept cards, or there's
Possibly,
some
yeah.
here that even have like Venmo accounts set
Mhm.
up, and so you can just Venmo to pay.
So
Um,
much easier.
there's a few that still do cash only, and I rarely go to those because I just don't
I
have
just
it
want to
on
be able to
me.
stop by and yeah, not have to
Yeah, I
worry about
don't want to have to get it out, and then it's like, what if I don't find anything? And I mean, it just
yeah,
it's so much easier to be able to just pay with a card or with Venmo
right.
or whatever.
It's good
So
for cash if you're like on a budget and you're like, I only need to bring
yes.
$60. But other than that,
Or
okay.
sometimes if I sell something on marketplace, I
Mhm.
will use that cash for like a marketplace purchase,
Yes,
or like an estate sale purchase, something that
totally.
you can only use cash for. But a lot of times on marketplace, even people will accept Venmo now, and like
Yes.
I've
Well,
accepted
that's over the
Venmo.
years. I do a lot of local Facebook groups, and I used to say cash only because then I knew that would be like my little
Yeah.
thrifting money. But now,
Hmm.
like people will just almost not buy something if it's cash only because they want to be able to like Venmo you, which
Yeah.
makes sense. But
See,
it's
in
funny.
our area, you get a lot of older people too, so they still
Mhm.
want to do cash.
Yes.
And I'm fine with either. But so if I get cash from something like that, then I try to keep it within like my little cash like
Right.
thrifting budget
Little
and
thrift
reuse it.
budget.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, like I said, thrift stores, consignment sales, estate sales are just a hit or miss. Um, yard sales, it's just, I hate having to like drive random places and not knowing
Mhm.
what I'm going to get. Um,
Right. In estate sales, you can kind of preview now that they have.
yes, because they've,
Yeah.
put pictures online. So you at least have a gist of what you're getting. But it's yard sales, unless it's really close. Like there was one literally right across the road from our neighborhood, and I popped into there and
Right.
actually bought a bookcase. Um,
Any more storage.
yeah, not too long ago. And she let me Venmo her because I was like, I don't have cash. Like, do you have Venmo? And she's like, oh, I do. Um, so otherwise, yeah. And marketplace is just a constant for me. I
Mhm.
just always kind of pull it up and like flip through, I mean, several times a day probably. And I
Oh,
have
I've
certain
started doing
things
that
that
too, and it's
it's a problem,
wonderful and terrible
maybe.
at the same
Yeah.
time.
There's certain things that I look for kind of as a constant. And then there's certain things that like I'm looking for at any given time. Like my constants, like my unicorn item that I'm looking for, regardless of where it is.
So do
I
you have a
really
unicorn right now? Like, do you have a certain piece that you're like,
I
loving it?
do. I have two that like I've had for a while. Um, I really want like a Welsh cupboard. You know what I'm
Oh,
talking about?
no, what is
It's like
that?
either an Irish or Welsh cupboard. So they're those big, like kind of like raw pine
Okay.
you know what I'm talking about, like that are in a dining room or like the Downton Abbey kitchen,
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
one of those, but like a big one for
Right.
our kitchen. The
Yes.
one we have in our kitchen, I love. It's an Ethan Allen piece. I got that at
You just showed it on Instagram the other day. I know exactly what you're
yes,
talking about because you're talking about your kitchen.
I
Yes.
got that one at a kind of like an antique mall
Hmm.
that's near us that I like going to quite a bit. Some of the booths are really high, but you can find some good deals there. And that one was like $200 maybe. And it's
It's
huge,
huge. Yeah.
but I really want like that raw pine.
Yeah. Oh, that
And
would
so
be so pretty.
they're like, some people call it, I guess, depending on the origins, but it's like an English cupboard, a Welsh cupboard, or an Irish cupboard.
Like all the keywords, we need the algorithm to pick it
Yes.
up.
So one of those, and they've popped up randomly around here, but they'll be like $1,000 or like $900. And I'm like, would you take 250? And people are like, no. um, so that, or I also really want a stuffed pheasant, which some
Oh.
people are like,
No, but I feel like that's like such a unique item that when it comes across, like you're gonna be the one. You're like, this is for me.
um, so there's several accounts that have one, and just how they have it styled is so pretty. Like I love it. One is, oh gosh, I'm so bad at remembering,
I'm bad at
like
it too.
usernames.
Exactly.
I'll have to think of it and look it up, but I've seen several of them styled, and not the ones that like go on the wall, but one that can like
Right. Like
sit
it's
on a
something I
table
can
and be
see
like,
that.
I'm a
Yeah.
pheasant, I'm here,
Especially
like
this
I'm
time of
pretty.
year, like it would just look really
Yes.
beautiful with the colors and
So
everything.
those are my two things that are kind of hard to find or just really expensive.
If you would share your best secondhand tip that you would share with anybody who's maybe getting started shopping secondhand or
Oh
just
gosh.
anything that's your favorite tip.
I would say just get out there and do it. Like you're not going to learn, and you're not going to find anything unless you just go do it. And I feel like now too, there's a lot of great resources in a way, like, I don't know if resources is the right word, but like encouragement, I guess, and
Right.
resources too. But I mean, just for me being in the home decor community, I can think of so many accounts that post like tricks or offer guidance on like Facebook Marketplace. Like I even have um, a post on consignment sales, and it's
Right.
something that I was planning on doing like a whole series over the summer, but then summer actually happened and it got
I
so
just
busy
followed up
that
on something from last year. So do not
yes, that
tell
it didn't, I didn't, I didn't actually do the other parts of the series, but I was planning on doing, and I still am doing, something covering estate sales and like shopping for clothes in general, shopping for, just lots of aspects of thrifting. And so I feel like you can find that even on TikTok or Instagram, like people that show you what they've gotten or, offer encouragement. And so I feel like it's very accessible
like
now.
there's community, there's more community around it.
Yes. And it doesn't seem, there's not like a stigma, you know what I mean? Because I think in
Right.
my head growing up, I was like, why would I know?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
but that has really gotten taken away, especially as people make more of a shift and a push towards like sustainability
Mhm.
and, trying to shift away from fast fashion and fast furniture,
Right.
just the constant turnover and the crap, particle board and all that stuff. And so I feel like there's
Yeah.
a huge push towards buying secondhand and reusing things. And um, so yeah, I would just say get out there and do it. Try to find things that you're interested in. If it's books, like that's another easy one. Like I love thrifting books and buying books secondhand. I go to McKay's all the time. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
just
we have that here.
okay. I'd
Yeah.
never even heard of McKay's until we moved here to Knoxville. Um, and then somebody was like, "Oh, you've never been there?" And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." And I walked
Who is
in and it
that?
was like, "Ah!" like crazy. So I go there a lot of times, and I actually bought my oldest Harry Potter book because she's working through the Harry Potter series. But I got her a hardback um, book for $2 at the thrift store today.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, I mean, it's just like that's such an easy thing to get into, or dishes or whatever it is. I would say just get out there and just give it a go, because
That's
you're
such a good
not going to
point.
find anything if you don't make the effort.
This was wonderful. I hope everyone enjoys listening. Follow you at A Blue Nest on
Yes.
Instagram, and you have a blog as well. Is it at or A
It's
Blue Nest?
a bluenest.com.
Perfect. Well, I hope that they will join you there, and thank you for spending time with me chatting about
Thank
all the fun
you.
things tonight.
Thank you for having
And
me.